Yo, Billy, you know what's awesome?
What's that, man?
Special guest, yo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's really good to be here.
Rock, man, rock. So,
It's awesome being here.
yeah, trying something a little bit new today. We are doing a audio and video. We're going to see how it works with having a conversation across the country. I'll export this fun stuff and I'll send it over to Ricky, and he'll do his magic and make us all look pretty.
Wait a minute. We didn't agree on that.
Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt talking like.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we got a special guest. So Ryan, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do.
Well, I usually guest on podcasts, usually more part of the Bay of Blood podcast. Live in West Virginia. Been living here for quite a while. Not originally from here.
Yeah.
Born in Tennessee.
I was about to say, I thought we were homeboys.
Yeah. Well, hey, Chattanooga. I was born in Chattanooga, but
Right.
I've lived all over. I've lived in Missouri, Florida. So, but yeah, I'm really nobody, man. I'm just, I love movies. I love horror, and I try to guest where I can, But yeah.
So yeah, if anybody spends any time on our Facebook page, you probably see Ry post things nonstop. So, we thought, hey, he's on a show, we're on a show, let's do a show together.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm for it.
Well, this show continues our Christmas. We turned everything orange and black pretty solid for Halloween, and then kind of took us a minute to kind of get over that little bit of a hangover through November, and then come December, we just turning everything white Christmas. Everything is as Griswoldian as we can. If you notice, I'm wearing the elf costume here, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, I kind of got the colors on, but not really.
So now is the time when you're fixing to have a little bit more time to yourself to sit, kick back, relax, and maybe take in a Christmas movie or two. So we've got a lot to choose from, lots to talk about. And unlike our other shows, this is not horror. So, I mean, we can go that way, but we don't have to. So, we'll just start off with the guest. Pour yourself a drink, and what's one of your go-to, gotta watch it during the holidays, Christmas movies?
Yeah, I mean, I got quite a bit. I'm usually like the, unconventional, movies, Christmas movie type. Like, I mean, the staples are always going to be there. Christmas Vacation, obviously. Christmas Story, Home Alone. But I thought I'd bring, quite a few new ones to the table,
Ooh.
I mean, you can't go without mentioning Die Hard, I mean, it is what it is. And like I say, I figured I'd try and bring something new to the table with this.
Let's talk about Die Hard, because that is a controversial one that people like to argue about. And I think it's more the fun of discussing it rather than actually arguing about it, right? Because, like I said, I was telling you on the phone the other day, if you really want to quibble, it was a summer blockbuster. It was released in July. So that wasn't exactly their intent. However, just like with many things, it wasn't necessarily their intent, but it turned into what it is. And now, I mean, it's set at Christmas. It happens during a Christmas party. So there's no real reason why you wouldn't, except for people like to get crappy about it. And I count it as one of the greatest Christmas movies ever.
Yeah, I mean, Christmas in July, if you really want to look at it,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't stand like people that make that argument so much anymore, because there's Christmas all throughout it. and Johnny, the guest that was actually going to be here tonight with us, I had to bring something up that kind of unique and like brilliant that he said that I never really thought about. He's like, well, he does crawl through the vents, Santa chimney. So yeah, there's that. But I mean, there's Christmas all throughout it, man.
Well, I saw that one not too long ago. That's like, no, he's creeping around a tower hiding from Alan Rickman. It's a Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're killing a guy named Hans Gruber, I mean, you got to kind of lean towards Christmassy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because technically it does take place on Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
And then I think about the time the movie ends, it's like it's Christmas, but Christmas music. He puts Santa hats on
The
the
dead guys.
villains. Ho ho ho! Now I've got a machine gun.
Well,
Yeah, it's a classic, man. I had to rewatch it today before the show, and it still holds up super well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I heard you guys on your Rambo show. I listened to that. Great show, by the way. But oh, and I also wanted to mention it's not Christmas, but Rambo 5. Both of you guys need to see. It's really good.
is it?
I actually liked it better than the fourth one. But yeah, I forget where I was going with that. But
First Blood's technically a Christmas movie too. He's shooting out Christmas lights.
And so is Lethal Weapon, and so is Batman Returns. I mean, so
there
you
you
can
go. There you go.
You can go down the list.
Well, the thing is, Batman Returns is one of those that I always like. I feel like watching it at Christmas because Tim Burton, even in like Edward Scissorhands and stuff, Tim Burton has this real majestic grasp of the concept of the holidays, where the holiday itself is almost a character in the movie, like the backdrops and the stuff like that. So Batman Returns is never one that's been, but Batman Returns is another summer blockbuster, but Batman Returns has never been out of and I watch that every Christmas season if I can. That or Edward Scissorhands. I mean, they're really different kinds of movies, but they have the same feeling. So
they kind of lean towards that that type of seasonal thing. So
definitely.
Right. Well, I mean, you look at almost every Christmas list, and it always mentions Edward Scissorhands, and I kind of tried to like look at it a little bit deeper, and I'm like, Christmas, and we'll get into it more, but it's just an interesting topic and debate because you look at Edward Scissorhands, and Christmas isn't very prevalent throughout it, but yet it always gets put on that list.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, it's really the way I look at it.
It's still that fact, though, of people just like that argument about it because there is enough Christmas stuff in there to say that it's a Christmas movie, even though it has nothing to do with the Christmas spirit.
Right,
but
exactly.
Neither does A Christmas Story. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. It's really all in how you look at it. I mean, it's situational. It's subjective. It's you can look at it however you want. It can be genre bending. It's all in how you look at it, but does it represent the holiday? Because the way I try and view it lots of times is take the original Black Christmas. Okay, if that can be a famous Christmas horror film, then you know what I mean? Like, look at what happens to Griswold in Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
He gets put in this situation. To me, it's all situational. Like, if that can be considered a Christmas film, but horror, then why can't, like, let's say Batman Returns or anything else?
Well, but at the same time, it's in the title, Black Christmas. That kind of tilts it one way or the other, right? So that's the difference. Look at Bad Santa, right? Or not Bad Santa. What's the new Fat Man, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to consider this a Christmas movie, but is it or is it not? We don't know yet, right?
I haven't seen it yet.
I mean,
I haven't heard much, except for that Mel Gibson's in it, and people get pissed off that he's employed.
Yeah, all you got to do is say his name, and they're already pissed. So, which brings us to Lethal Weapon.
Right.
Yep. Well, I mean, even take that. Yeah. I mean, in Die Hard, Christmas is way more prevalent than in Lethal Weapon, but yet Lethal Weapon gets put on that list every single time.
Sure, and it's because Die Hard does. So it's that thing where, I don't know. We can do a whole show about that, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
and we're going to.
I think what happens is, and we've talked about music. Ricky and I talk about music a lot, and my dad will point out when I was a kid, my dad, when he was in college and just out of college, he was a DJ, and he was a top 40 DJ. And his record collection was so diverse, it was insane, because he'd have everything from like, the Archies to like Jimi Hendrix, and then all of the Motown stuff, and then like disco. And it was just all mixed up. And I'd be like, dude, what is the deal? He's like, well, first of all, he got most of them for free because they were promos, but he's like, that's just how the radio worked. Band had a hit. It wasn't compared to other songs. Pretty much there was country, there was standards, which was like the stuff from the 40s, and then there was rock and roll, and rock and roll was a huge bucket.
It's a big net. Yeah.
But it didn't really start getting, but movies were completely different. Movies had studios, and studios specialized. So like you had studios like Universal that specialized in horror movies, and you had those other ones that specialized in Christmas movies. And you get a scene of that in the back behind the scenes in Pee-wee's Big Adventure whenever they're riding through the studio lots, and they're busting in on Christmas movies and busting in on Godzilla movies, and they're just filming like in the beach movie too. They're filming it all in that same.
I just changed my list. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's my favorite Christmas movie.
It's awesome.
I didn't even realize that was a Christmas movie, to be honest, but there you go.
But
it's right up there with it's right up there with the Christmas movie that started it all, Devil and Mrs. Jones.
Never seen it.
That's whenever you're over at your friend's house and he's like, I got a movie and it's Christmas time. And then you're like, memories.
I found this VHS.
Yeah.
So this got nothing to do with Christmas, but it actually kind of does. So my buddy Chris, I won't say his last name, but you guys know who he is if you follow me and see us interact or whatever. But his dad, when we were in high school, had a condo, and his dad would be like, "Hey, I'm going out of town for the weekend. There's a case of beer in the fridge. Come over and stay at the house, and keep an eye on things." So what were a bunch of teenagers to do but go drink beer and like watch movies and prank call people and cut up and Well, his dad had a lot of he had a VHS collection, but they were all pre-recorded VHSs. Hang around, throw in Demolition Man. We're watching Stallone and Snipes, and watch the movie. Movie ends, credits are rolling. Somebody hops up and is ordering a pizza, and all of a sudden the credits stop, and it's he had it hidden in the at the back end of the movies, so his wife wouldn't find out.
Right.
And we're all just like, "Oh, Chris, get another one and fast forward it. Let's see how much stuff you have."
That's great. Yeah, I mean, just like you're saying about music, though, I mean, much in the same way that music can be like cross boundaries and genres and whatever, I think movies can do the same exact thing.
Sure.
So, but I mean, how do you guys want to do it? You just want to go around and say our lists, or pick some of them off our list?
Naming movies, whether you like them or not. And I mean, it's Christmas movies, so we're just kind of spitballing here.
Cool. Well, Jingle All the Way, man. Jingle All the Way is a good one. There you go.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I saw it when I was a kid. I know I'm, quite a few years younger than you guys, but it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie, and you go back to it. That was kind of my point earlier. What I was trying to say is that much like you, I think it was in the Rambo show that you were saying, Billy, about how some movies you put in and it's like, don't really hold up too well, and you just kind of want to keep the memory of it. That couldn't be more true. But other times it's like, you pop them in and you're surprised and shocked at how well they actually still hold up.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them on this list like that, though, I think. Some, not so much, but but it's so true, though.
So how old were you when you saw Jingle All the Way, would you say? You said you saw it when you were a kid. Was that,
I don't even know. I'd probably say, if I had to guess, early teens, maybe even earlier. Because I think it came out like mid-90s or something like that. But it's fun.
Totally.
Yeah.
For me, one that, and we can't do probably won't be able to run down a top 10 because it's just so much to talk about. But, we went and saw the Gremlins in the theater.
Oh yeah.
And I was 8. And
wow.
like you talk about those movies that hold up, because we did the Jim Henson episode talking about how, like, whenever you have a puppet that's real in the room and you're actually interacting with it, even if it, the Gremlins were scary, don't get me wrong, but it can be a goofy little puppet, but the actors are actually looking at something. And then you get Steven Spielberg involved and you turn those gooey little Gremlins, and then you have the Mogwai that are just like super cute, so they're polar opposites. Dude, Scott and I on Scary Dad have talked so many times about, like, who got away with saying, like, we're going to market this to children, because
right.
As an adult, it's not as scary, but as an adult, I can also see that its implications are scarier. Like, if you've got a wild imagination as a child and you see what that really meant, like, they were sneaking into people's houses and chewing up their wiring and messing up their cars and, like, killing their dogs, like, all kinds of stuff.
And, killing old ladies on a stair lift.
Yeah.
Kicks Mrs. Dingle out the window. I mean, and that was marketed straight up as a children's movie. There was Happy Meal toys in McDonald's, and as a Christmas movie, and it was just, it's brilliantly executed, perfect film, love it, like one of my top ever movies ever, really. But oh my God, there's some twisted people that wrote that marketing plan.
Yeah, that's very true. When you look at it, I can't imagine, being a kid and seeing that in '84, I think it was. But yeah, it's a classic, man, and so true what you're saying, though. But it's really intriguing when you look at it, because take that, and I don't know the reaction kids had back in the day. Like you said, you were pretty much terrified for the most part of it, but how marketing goes, because you take like Batman Returns, and we all know the story behind that. Like, they have like a deal with McDonald's and all this and that, and completely got screwed on the whole deal because they thought it was too dark.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, well, the first one was pretty dark. Where were you for that one? And then we saw where it went. So I don't know. It's a funny thing, It really is.
Well, it's a guaranteed blockbuster, so your franchises are going to jump on it. But it's Tim Burton. I guess you didn't know what you're going to get. Spielberg's kind of a wonderful thing too, because even look at Jurassic Park, right? So that's catered towards whatever age group. But come on, man, some of that stuff was terrifying, but you still sold the toys, So that's that blockbuster thing, right? So you can get away with it when you're Steven Spielberg. Well,
pretty
Joe
much.
Dante, yeah. So,
yeah.
But yeah, Gremlins is just a classic, man. So much fun. So I'm gonna go with, you kind of hit on it a while ago, Ry, with not necessarily Home Alone, but I absolutely love Home Alone 2.
Yeah, man. Yeah. The
When he's chunking
see,
those bricks, I die laughing every time, man. That and Tim Curry, we love you. You know,
oh
all that
yeah.
stuff. I just love it, man. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, it got that. It is a fun movie too, but it's like you even look back at that, and it's like about that time, and even into the '90s, say with like Homeward Bound. I don't know, a bunch of sequels. It got that sequel treatment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like the same exact formula, but we're
In New
lost
York.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A little bit different, but pretty much the same movie.
Yeah.
But see, and I think,
Shout-
Yeah, man. I can just
think,
rewind. I can just rewind him tossing those bricks, man. And I just, every time that guy's going, bam, kills me.
See, you mentioned the sequel treatment though, and I think that that's one of those things that we celebrate so much here, and even on my other show, is that sort of the magic got lost, because if you look at some of the stuff, it's like some of the franchises, and not just for Christmas, but just for many film franchises, we didn't need new ground broken every time. It's like you had a charismatic cast, you had a good partnership, you had a good theme. If it did well, we're gonna go see it again. Like, I don't need to know Jason Voorhees's like aunt's backstory. Like, I don't need that kind of new ground broken. It's just like, hey man, got people killing them in the woods, grab them a new bunch and just turn them loose again. Same thing
Right.
with like Lethal Weapon. That first movie was dark. It was a very dark movie. It was awesome and very dark. But then they figured that the chemistry between the two main characters was what was, and it was the kind of cracking of the jokes. It was the camaraderie. It was kind of the levity that pulled that movie completely up. It elevated the movie that would have just been another buddy cop film. Rated R, hard boiled buddy cop film. But those two guys elevated it to kind of a bit of a dark comedy. And so then whenever they just went to part two, just elevate that dark comedy part and then just turn them loose again. Still violent as all hell, right?
Right.
Lethal Weapon 2 has a much higher body count than part 1, but it's just the lights are turned on a little bit more, and they get to cut up a little bit more. So I think that's one of the things that they used to do back in the 80s and 90s, mostly through the 80s and then partially into the 90s, where if they had a good formula, they just respun it and we loved it. And a lot of times we'll watch, we'd be more familiar with the sequels because those were the ones that HBO and Cinemax and stuff could get for cheap to put on rotation. Right. So like things like Jaws 2 or Lethal Weapon 2 or Terminator, well, not Terminator 2. That's the one that kind of ended that whole thing where they needed to really make it better as it went on. But yeah, so like, call me shallow, but I don't necessarily need new ground broken. Just put them in a different scene and throw bricks.
Yeah. Right. And we're very guilty of that now because we always try to give more explanation to things that we really don't need, and it kind of kills the magic, right? So
yeah,
it
does.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've got a real problem with that, man. And hello, I mean, all three of us sitting right here are big Star Wars fans, and we've over-explained things to a point to where it's like, I early on in Hail Me, I used to do this thing called, it's basically where I would just go on a rant. It was just called Why. And every one of them was focused right at George Lucas. It's like, you're raping my childhood, Lucas, because you're changing everything you said that was canon before.
Right.
Anyways, So, yeah, you over-explain and you catch yourself in a loop, and it loses its magic, man. And that's the reason you end up with 4 or 5 sequels, and by the end of it, you're like, eh.
Well, and that's why that, there's articles all over the place saying that the last 2 Mandalorian episodes are better than the last 5 films. And I totally agree, because I really, really do feel like, and we'll we'll talk about Mandalorian on another episode, but I don't want to get too into it.
Yeah, Star
But-
Wars is a whole separate show,
But for
right?
the last, so since Return of the Jedi in 1983, producers, directors, writers have been trying to figure out what's the formula, what made these things so great. It's got to be this, it's got to be that. No, we liked lightsabers and blasters hitting stormtroopers and ships blowing up. There was a great story and a lot of character in it, but we didn't need science and we didn't need convoluted family trees and politics and spice and all kinds of weird stuff like that to be like, put a bunch of stormtroopers on that side of a bunch of blasters and cut loose and we're happy. I mean, because they got Robert Rodriguez for that last episode.
Yeah.
That dude's A-list. And they're like, okay, we're going to get you to just blast the hell out of some stormtroopers. And he's like, I'm on board. Let's go. So we don't need as much backstory as I think sometimes they think we do.
Yeah, for sure.
It all goes back to the holiday special, man.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, man. We can't go without mentioning the holiday special. For sure.
So my boss at work, I showed him a clip of it on YouTube. I was like, said, you a big Star Wars fan? He's like, oh yeah. I said, you ever seen this? And I just showed him a few clips. He's like, no, what is that? I said, over the weekend, check it out. You'll either thank me or want to punch me when you get back. He came in, he's like, man, that's the weirdest thing I think I've ever seen. I said, that's why I wanted you to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, and you even look at that one, it's like, yeah, it's called the holiday special, but
Uh-oh.
Are we
have to pick,
good?
Yeah, we have to pick back up, I guess.
All right. It's still recording, so I guess we're going to have to take a break. That was kind of like our 2-minute warning. So did it stop y'all?
It says, thank you for choosing Zoom. This meeting no longer has a time limit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that popped up for me too.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but
it didn't tell me that.
Huh.
Well,
looks like we're good for now. I don't know.
Is it still recording?
It's still recording.
Well, all right.
I did not get that message though. I was just looking at my time and thinking like, hey, it's getting about time to maybe start taking a break. Let's I'll listen to what they say and then I'll cut in and like drop us out. And then y'all both said, uh-oh. Like, all right. Well, I'm still recording. It is recording. And until I get a message that tells us not to, then I think we're good to go.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I was just saying about the good old holiday special. I mean, you even look at that, and it's supposed to be about Life Day, and it says the holiday special, but it's like, that doesn't even take place to almost the very end of the movie.
A time for love and peace. Time for, it's like, what?
It's like one big long acid trip. They should have just called it the acid special.
The acid special.
So we've talked about whether or not like Batman is a Christmas movie. Is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie?
Both.
I think you could flip the coin on that one. It goes.
Yeah.
It goes.
You split it down the middle. It's a Thanksgiving movie.
Right. You just watch it right there in the middle.
Hey, I mean, when Jack goes up to the trees, to be fair, look at all the designs on the trees. There's a turkey. There's a Christmas tree. You can watch it any time of the year, man. It's such a great movie.
I love how he steals the bunny. Like the kids, they steal the bunny.
Yeah.
Easter Bunny's like looking around. It's like, you need to apologize to him.
Yeah. And what else can you say about that movie that hasn't already been said? But going back to Home Alone right quick, or Home Alone 2, one of my favorite scenes in that is when I think they're at the fish market and he keeps saying, "Smells like fish." No, it's freedom. Smells like fish. Smells like freedom. So great. The Sticky Bandits, man, the Sticky Bandits.
Speaking of Home Alone 1, it's funny because, different perspectives. We're, speaking of Home Alone, period, but we were talking about part 2, but, like, I don't think there is a kid, well, a male kid that ever didn't think that they might have to defend their home. If you had a Red Ryder, like, it's in the Christmas Story, too. He's like, he wants his Red Ryder BB gun in case he has to defend his home against, bandits and stuff. And so, you got Kevin in there, like, beefing up and, like, securing his house, securing his fortress. And what John Hughes was always really good with, like, living the fantasy, but what kind of wish fulfillment is that, to be like, okay, you've got these crooks that are bad guys. They're seriously bad guys. They're not good guys, but they're just bumbling enough that you can take them out with, these little homemade, the kind of forts that you're going to draw with crayons, right? It's like you have
Right.
these, but then in the end of the day, he would have killed those guys. Like, any one of those traps would have hurt those guys really bad.
Oh yeah.
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 So, the one that always gets me, the one that always gets me the worst is the ornaments. When he steps on the ornaments.
Oh yeah.
That kind of glass, that kind of glass is the worst kind of glass to get stuck in your foot or to get a splinter with.
Yeah.
Because it's so brittle that once you do actually start to work it loose, it breaks off.
It'll break off.
It sucks so bad.
I think the one thing that always cracks me up is, I mean, obviously Joe Pesci, but Daniel Stern, man.
Yeah.
With the tarantula on the face, the screaming, the paint cans. Daniel Stern just sells it, man.
Yeah. And that's really what I liked about part 2, because he's the one that gets the bricks to the face. He's the one that gets electrocuted and becomes a skeleton with his hair,
Yeah,
Harry! Yeah.
That scene is probably my favorite scene in that whole movie. Is that?
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, it's hilarious, man. I can't cracks you up every time.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
man.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I mean, I was just, gonna say, like, I feel like I'm reading from a script here. I just took notes.
Right.
But oh, just to bring up, like, for the audience members and whoever else, that going back to our argument about Christmas movies and what they can and can't be, because you could look at it however you want, but basically, I mean, not every Christmas movie is all about, like, sappy morals, traditional values, religious symbolism, Santa even. It can be set at Christmas time, but doesn't necessarily have to revolve around it. And what I love most is it can be like the perfect backdrop, like a way to unite the characters and their audiences, and perfect for still keeping in that mood. You know what I mean? Like, going back to Die Hard or Batman Returns,
Yep.
It can be a way to, it can be that perfect backdrop to, like, sell you or to reel you in. So yeah, I mean, that's basically what I had to say, but do you guys agree?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's still open to interpretation, right? I mean, and plus it's the impact of when you see them, right? The impact of when you see them, what time of life, what kind of influence they are, all those things tie into what makes these movies special to you, regardless of if they're totally seasonal or not.
Right. Well, there's like one that always gets just completely pilloried whenever it's mentioned. But like when I was a kid, we'd go to see movies. We'd go down to my grandparents' house and we'd go to see movies. And one of the ones that we went and saw was Santa Claus the movie, which was it's just, I mean, that right there is a huge marketing grab. I mean, that was a big Coca-Cola, advertisement. But still, there's like a nice place in my heart for that. That it's just. I don't think it deserved as bad a reviews as it got, I mean, it was a bit commercialized, and I understand that, but let's be real. We were going to see it on Christmas. My grandparents and parents had already bought all the toys, so it wasn't like they were going to go buy more. You know? So,
Yeah.
but and plus John Lithgow is just amazing. So
Yeah.
if it's got him in it, it's probably worth watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
See, it's been forever since I've seen that one, but like Jingle All the Way, that's another one I used to watch all the time. And again, like going back to the sequel treatment or however you want to put it, I don't remember much about the sequels to those, but the first one, and I didn't even know the first one didn't do that well in theaters. But
well, you're talking about the
I-
Tim Allen one. You're
yeah,
talking about the Santa Claus, Tim Allen. I'm
Oh,
talking about Santa Claus the movie. It came out in like
Yeah.
1985 or 86,
Yeah.
something like that.
80.
okay.
Yeah. Something like that.
Wow, I didn't even know. To be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Santa Claus
Okay.
with
That's what's
Tim
got.
Allen. Like my wife really likes it, but she's a lot younger than me. I never
Yeah.
really cared for it. I mean, it was okay, it was cute, but it wasn't like, oh, this is the thing.
I like Kurt Russell better as Santa Claus myself.
Dude, he's as awesome as
Yeah.
Kurt Russell's awesome as everybody though. Like,
Yep. Which I haven't even
Yep.
seen those, but like that meme,
Good.
I'm sure you guys saw. It's like you look at that meme and you're like, huge missed opportunity.
Mhm.
Snake Plissken and Christmas, come on.
well, the thing about the Christmas Chronicles that makes it so good is that, well, first of all, Kurt Russell is such a good actor that he can just take whatever material he's given and just make it his own. So you don't really see Kurt Russell as Santa Claus, but once he puts on the suit, he really, I mean, he just transforms. And it's awesome because again, you sometimes you look and you like, could this role be played by somebody else? And you're like, I don't think so, because he's just got that kind of that that charisma, that sort of worldliness of, like you can see that he's a few hundred years old and magical and just has to take care of business, and all this other stuff's going on around him, and he's just kind of like, yeah, stuff happens. He gets caught and put in jail, and he's just like, eh, we'll have a concert. Like it's just cool. He's just cool the whole way through, and it's really neat. So it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie if you get a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could check it out.
I was really surprised with actually liking it. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got Kurt Russell in it, so I'm sold. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, as only Kurt Russell can sell it.
It's got
Like, I
Milky in it at the very end too. So
Oh,
Right.
nice. Yeah, I'd watch Kurt in anything.
Yeah. I have to go with our family favorite here though, and you brought up earlier. It's the National Lampoon's.
Mhm.
Is just it's a staple of not only our house, but even when I go to my dad's house, that's what's on while we're there. I mean, they put it on repeat. So, we went to the theater and saw it last year, because they started showing it again around the theater. So,
Mhm.
yeah, man, Becky and I went and seen that in '88 in the theater. Of course, I was a whopping 18 years old, and we were just
89?
rolling, man. Was it 89?
89? Yeah, I think it was 89. But yeah, same thing.
So I was 19.
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah, man.
about the vacation movies with Chevy Chase is they're funny when you're a kid. They are so relatable when you grow up.
Oh yeah.
Because
Yeah, I mean,
he's trying so hard to like recreate these Christmas memories from when he was a kid, and the vacation memories, and he is working overtime to make this picturesque moment that his family appreciates the fact that he does, but they don't really care. They certainly don't care as much as he does. And it's funny because that's me, because like my kids are little, we do Halloween huge, we do Christmas huge. But I'll sit there and worry over lights, or I'll worry over placement, or I'll worry like not anxiety, but I'll sit there and mess with it until it works. And my wife's like, dude, nobody's gonna see that. It's behind the hedge. I'm like, no, it must work probably like it has to. It's gotta be right, because otherwise, it's just bedlam. Screws fall out and the world falls apart. So
it's that it's kind of like what we talked about last episode. It's that Christmas spirit, right? Because it's that inner child. You're trying to share that inner child experience with the ones around you that you want them to feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But you're exactly right, though, with the whole thing about Christmas Vacation is the family coming in, you're getting kicked out of your bedroom and sleeping on the floor because your grandparents are going to be sleeping in your room. You're like, I don't know if my grandmother would want to sleep in a room full of Kiss posters, But that's the things that happen, right? And yeah, it's totally relatable. It's taken to the nth degree because that's what those movies are for. But there's a lot of truth to it too, man.
Well, dude,
The
the
fact
lights.
buying stuff for people that you really don't want to buy anything for, and then it ends up being an incredible gift, and you're like, yeah, that's the right thing to do.
Like the Christmas lights. So we haven't talked. We haven't talked lately in the last. But dude, so I don't do Christmas as big as I do Halloween, but I still go pretty hard. So I have these multiple rolls of these LED C9 size lights, the big ones. And I've had them for a few years, and they're starting to dim out. But I thought maybe I could squeeze one more year out of them. So I go put them up and turn them on, and the sun goes down, and it sucks. So I'm like, well, time to retire these lights and buy new lights. Well, the front of my house has a big gable like this, and then the side has another one. So it's not as easy as just walking around stringing them. Like I've got to get a ladder and the stick and the whole thing. So I'm like, okay, go to the store, like measure out, like I need this many lights, like whatever. So I go buy the big old roll of lights. I plug it in, it comes on. So I'm like, it's on a spool. So I like hang this one and roll it out foot by foot, get up over the gables and down. I get to the end, and it looks like the machine that spun the wires just had a hiccup, like right at the end of the spool, because it comes off and there's like 3 bulbs hanging off, and they look like balls, and they're all like this close together. And then there's like another 10 feet of perfectly spaced lights, and I'm just like, go back, uncoil, like undo it, go to the store, return the thing, like buy another one, uncoil it all this time to make sure that there's no dangles hiding in the middle. Man, the lights this year were just like, my wife's like, dude, are you hanging those lights again? I'm like, so somewhere out there, I'm drinking the Clark W. Griswold, because that poor dude.
Yeah, there's just so many great. Me and the wife actually just watched that too, but there's so many great moments in it. But that moment with the lights that you're talking about always reminds me of when I was growing up, my dad, and he would get out there and do everything he could and put in like the dedication and the commitment every year to try and make the family happy. And you'd see him up on a roof. I mean, he was exactly like that. Like it came across as like a Scrooge or Grinch even.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was the exact same way. He's like, why do I got to be out here every damn year doing this crap, and almost to that level. Just like there used to be this old spiral light tree that he'd hang up in the yard, but you'd have to like extend it to get it to hang. And yeah, needless to say, it was all a pain in the butt. But yeah, so many relatable moments in that movie. Yeah. And like that's the greatest argument that I always try and use with that movie, is that Christmas doesn't always have to be about sunshine and daisies and flowers, you know what I mean? Like a ray of sunshine, because we all know that's not the truth. I've had crappy Christmases. Everybody has. It can be about anything. It can be about
Tylenol?
Yeah. Dude, I cracked so hard up at that moment Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, talk about relatable moments when he blows up like that. You know, he just goes on that speech. I wish I knew it word for word, but then
Dude,
he's like,
it's
"Where's the Tylenol?"
he like basically like pops a blood vessel because he's sitting there talking, and then he like calms down like real quick, and he's just like,
Yeah.
So just to show how ingrained it is, so last night we were eating dinner and Becky said something to me and I misunderstood what she said, and she said something about somebody's face. I said, "What?" She said, "That's so-and-so's face." I was like, "Oh, I thought you said Grace." She said, "Grace died 30 years ago." So it's just right there, right?
Nice.
oh yeah.
God blessing. You couldn't hear a dump truck driving through a nitroglycerin plant.
Yeah, I love that part. Well, I mean, even when the cat blows up,
Yeah.
I crack up at that every time. It's like so hilarious. And then meanwhile, you got Eddie outside, like emptying the crap.
Well, I just think it's funny how like they're like all the lights, they finally like everything finally starts to go right, and then there's Randy Quaid like walks up behind him. He's just like,
It's a beauty, Clark. Sure
he's
is a
just
beauty.
like every finally he has his one shining moment. But that's dude, like I said, I had to do everything twice this year. So we've in that front gable that we've got these little brace things, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna run some green lights down and make a little Christmas tree, you know.
Yeah.
So it turned out good. It looked really nice, but I was like, okay, it needs a topper. So I ran down to Walmart. They've got this little plastic white star, right? So I crawl up there with my ladder, but it's just out of reach. It's like this far out of reach for me to reach the top of the gable. So I have to get on the roof to hang this star. My wife is just like Beverly D'Angelo standing there just being like, do we really need, like, is this, you know, I'm like, nope. She's like, well, what she said was, it's starting to get dark. Everything's wet, you know, and you have to use the fence to climb on the roof. Is this really what you need to do right now? And I'm like, yes, I do. So I climb up on the roof, and take up my drill, my screw, and crawl up to the edge of the gable. And she's standing there watching, making sure I'm not going to fall. And I get my screw, and it's got the washer on there so I can hang the star onto the thing, right? And I like stick it in there. Perfect. Crawl down off the roof, come down, crawl up with the star, went up there. I left like a millimeter not enough clearance so the star wouldn't hang. And I couldn't like bend it because it was too high up. So I had to carry the star, climb up back up on the roof, like hang out. And she's just standing there, like with her hands on her hip, just watching it.
Yeah.
Come
And
back
you've already
down.
said all the things, right? She's like, he's on the roof, in the dark, in the rain, playing with electricity.
Yep. And I come down, and I'm just kind of, you know, like I'm in a good mood. It wasn't like it was a problem. I was just like, I come down, and I kind of like walking through, and I was just like, the things you do for love. And she's like, nope, that's all you, man. Like, you love doing this. It's your project.
It's like, thanks, babe. Appreciate it.
Ah, man. I mean, it's fun. We're all laughing. There's no
Yeah.
grumpiness about it. But she is definitely just like, are you gonna be okay up there, Clark?
Well, we could do a whole podcast on that whole movie, but man,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Ricky could tell you, but so many great little moments in that movie. Like, obviously Chevy Chase, but without Randy Quaid, like he's got so many. What does he say to him? I forget word for word, but when the chair burns up because of the cat, and he takes it outside to put on the curb, and he asks him about it, he's like, "How much? How much for that chair?" Or when Clark goes up in or he gets stuck up in the attic, and he's listening to Ray Charles.
Yeah.
You know?
The sled scene, man. When Chevy Chase gets, I mean, it's just, you can go on and on, man. I mean, yeah. The light bulbs and Eddie getting the dog food and slamming on top of the light bulbs in the store. I mean, it just, it doesn't end, man.
When they're in the store and he just That's classic. He just piles everything up.
It's
You
a
gonna pay
real
for
nice
this?
surprise. Real nice surprise. And he pulls out a list.
Yeah. He's like, you go ahead and get yourself something nice.
Real nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, but I mean, there's a ton of these movies, right? I mean, you can go back into the classics. My mom was always a big fan of was it Silver Bells?
Mm-hmm. There's Silver Bells. There's Holiday Inn. There's, it's funny because a couple of years ago, whenever they were talking about the "Baby It's Cold Outside" controversy, right? Like,
Oh,
we
God.
can't have that. Dude, have you ever actually seen what that's from?
Yeah.
They're in Florida. That is
Yeah.
not a Christmas movie. They're in Florida, and like I can't remember exactly what the thing is, but it's like a husband and a wife, and they're like reminiscing about being at home, or it's a boyfriend and girlfriend, but I think it's a husband and wife. And she's like, "Oh, I really can't stay." And he's like, "But it's cold outside. It's sun shining, and there's people at the beach behind the glass doors behind them." Like they're reminiscing about being teenagers or being, dating like 10 years ago or whatever, singing this song to each other. And it somehow became a Christmas song, like a Christmas carol, but it's not from a Christmas movie at all.
Right.
Just like context, people, context.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that in itself is a whole topic, by itself for a whole show, but it's just ridiculous, man. I mean, between that and, well, we all know what's going on in the world today, but like how people's just getting so offended at like, it's like the most minute little things. It's like,
Y'all need to go back and watch Blazing
we just keep,
Saddles and then
yeah,
chill
I
out.
mean, there's no way we'd be able to get away with movies like that nowadays, but people just keep getting so offended over the smallest things.
Well,
It's
if you're looking for it, you're gonna find it. That's the thing, and it's not about you hear something that just offends you. It's the fact you're already looking for it. You almost
Mhm.
want to be offended so you can stomp your foot and say meh meh meh.
Exactly.
That's a whole different show too. But
That's
Yeah,
like when
I
my
mean,
kids. That's when my kids are mad, and you're like, can't make them happy because you're like, oh, well, you want some ice cream? They're like, we only have chocolate. You're like, you
don't
love
eat.
chocolate, but I want vanilla. It's like I'm not gonna make this happy. We're rounding up on the hour here. Dude, probably not probably, but Elf.
Muppet Elf.
I
Elf.
mean we're gonna count down to the end here, but we can't get out of here without talking about Elf.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Because that's another one of those kind of like Christmas Vacation. There was a flurry of Christmas related movies that came out in those kind of early aughts and whatever. But Elf has like Bad Santa and stuff like that, right? But Elf has had a second life in, but then if you watch the movie and you see that it does bleed green and red,
Yep.
silver and gold, it is very friendly to Christmas and the whole concept of it. And it's not cynical. I think that's what sets it apart, is because it is full of magic and wonder, and it's fun for children, and it's silly, right? But then that's Favreau. Like
Right.
Favreau
right.
has his finger on the pulse of what people like. It's kind of like they made all of these different superhero movies for decades before they gave it to Favreau, and he took one of the most unlikable characters and put him as a centerpiece of a massive franchise. And I'm sure at some point somebody was like, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" And he's like, "Just work with me here." Now he's basically pulled Star Wars out of the hellscape that it's been in for the last long time. But then you go back and you watch a little movie like Elf, and you see that who would have thunk it? I mean, because it's really good. So that's always one that we watch here at home because it's too much fun.
There's always It's a Wonderful Life, and another favorite. I like the Muppet Christmas Carol.
That's awesome too.
That's good.
You like what you like, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
man.
And Devil and Mrs. Jones Part 2.
yeah, I mean, uh, uh, I can't go without mentioning some too, but Elf is good. You know, I'm not the biggest Will Ferrell fan, and it's not like I hate on the movie. It's enjoyable, but it's one that's like grown on me more and more over time. It's like one of the wife's favorites. But there's something on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us,
Mhm.
and it's really good. But they just came out with a new one called I think Christmas Movies That Made Us, and they cover Elf and Nightmare Before Christmas. And you watch the one on Elf, and it's everything about the writers and producers and how they got around to making it and the story behind it. It's really, actually, really interesting. But it's still a good movie. It's just never been one of my absolute favorites. But it grows on you, you know.
It's one for me that I don't necessarily go and pull it off the shelf to watch it, but if it's on, I'll watch it.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Well, and I've got small children, so
Yeah.
they're like, we want to watch Buddy. And
Oh, yeah.
like, you know, you throw it on and it is full of those same things, like those little one-liners and those jokes, those little parts and pieces that, you know, the whole film stands alone, but then you can watch 10 minutes and, you know, crack a joke and, you know, have a laugh or whatever. So it's, and again, it was slotted along a whole bunch of forgettable stuff, and it's still standing strong and still kind of growing. So
Yeah.
you know, zeitgeist matters.
Yeah. I mean, I always forget that Favreau was the one that did it, but I think it was like the writer of it, just like a little interest, just like a little backstory to it. Like the writer, he had like a rough life, and he didn't have his dad in the picture, so you can very much see all that come through in the movie. So it's a little movie that's got a lot of heart to it, you know, for sure.
Yeah,
But
Will Ferrell's kind of hit and miss. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. There's some stuff I like, and there's a lot that I don't.
When he was on Saturday Night Live, I was like, why is this dude on here? And when he started making movies, I was like, see, that's where he's better at. Like he's like he can take material and he can work with it and make it cool. But
yeah, there's some stuff that I just think is hilarious, and there's some stuff I'm like, yeah, that's not funny at all.
Right.
I like him. I like him in bit parts, like in Eastbound and Down. The character he played there, when he was the car dealership owner, that was great. You know, so
Yeah.
I'm hit and miss with him.
Yeah, I mean, same here. They're not really Christmas movies, but I think two of my favorites that he's in that's like hilarious is obviously Step Brothers, and then I think The Nice Guys with Mark Wahlberg. That movie's hilarious, man. Yeah, for sure.
the funniest thing, have you seen that show, Comedians in Cars with Coffee?
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry
Yeah.
Seinfeld had Seth Rogen on, and they were talking about, you know, different stuff. And Seth Rogen said that they were at some award show where Prince won an award, and they thought he was there. And it said later on, like weeks later, talking to Will Ferrell said that he had a moment, like he knew that Prince wasn't there, and he called, and they're like, instead of saying accepting the award, or like they had the announcement music kept playing, waiting for Prince to come across the stage. And Will Ferrell said that he had this moment where he was going to go up on stage and accept the award as Prince, just like take the award, say thanks, give a speech. And he said that his biggest regret his entire career was that he didn't hop up and do that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the episode, they show they show a clip from that scene, and they like announce Prince won, and you see Will Ferrell, he's like got this look on his face. He's like sizing up the room. He's like looking at the stage, and he's like looking around at the cameras, and he's like looking at the stage. You can just see he's just like, didn't take the shot. It's great.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
I mean, he's a funny guy. Like I say, it's just he's not like with Ricky. I mean, he just never been one of my favorites, or like that is a good lead into Jim Carrey. The
Yeah.
Grinch, one of my favorites, and I got to watch every year. I don't care if it's Christmas or not. It could be Halloween, it could be July, it could be whatever. And I love that movie because I have such a fond memory of seeing it in theaters with my parents. This was like in 2000, so I was
Right.
11 or 12, but I loved it so much. It just puts you in that perfect mood. Jim Carrey, I mean, I think it's one of his best roles. He sells it to a T. But I also remember leaving that theater, and this is like, I don't know, around the same time that DVDs weren't quite, that big just yet. Like they were just on the horizon. So I left the theaters, and I remember thinking, like, I cannot wait till this movie comes out, on VHS, like home video, so I can own it. And I'm sure you guys can tell me more, but it seemed like forever in a day until that came out on home video. And it was probably even worse back in the 80s and 90s, I imagine, and they were much more expensive. Like you look at prices, say with like the first Child's Play,
Oh yeah.
and when it first released on home video, it was literally like, I don't know, 80, $90 for like one VHS.
Mm-hmm.
But it just took forever. And finally, when it did with the Grinch, I'm like, finally.
And I bet with the Grinch too, when it came out, it was probably real close to Christmas time too, because that was probably the marketing behind selling a lot of the copies, was making it, that seasonal thing. So that's probably why it did take so long, and they were probably holding it back.
Yeah, it used to take about a year because you'd have a movie in the
every
theater
bit of it
for its original run. Because before, like, and I'm talking like early to mid 80s, but even moving on, you'd have the theatrical run, and then it would go to the dollar movie and then if it was a popular movie, and then it would stay in the dollar movies for a while, and then it would drop off, and then it would come back as VHS, like start advertising to be coming this summer from Warner Home Video.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So like it would be a while, because you're like, I've got a VHS collection right here, and I'll pop it in there, and it's funny to see the commercials for stuff, because it'll be like 2 hits and a dud, like two movies you're like, oh yeah, and then one that you've never even heard of before.
Right.
But it's got like big name actors in it. It'll be like Meryl Streep and Marlon Brando in the Crap Fest, and you're like, coming this summer from Warner Home Video, and you're like, huh, I've never heard of this before.
Right. And sometimes when that happens,
there was a movie with Marlon Brando called Crap Fest, I probably would have gone to see it.
I don't know. I mean, it's got Brando in it, so I'd check it out.
Usually it's those movies that are those kind of titles, and they also have like, Christopher Lambert and Tia Carrere in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like random people.
You watch your A-lister trying to buy out his own contract, and then like a whole bunch of C and D listers.
Starring Clint Eastwood and Selena Gomez.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you guys sound like big collectors too. Like, I don't know. I have a ton of VHS. I just always love movies, man. And I have about 1,000,001 VHS, but I also love, obviously, Blu-ray and DVD. Like, my collection is so massive between movies alone. Like, I'm not some purist, like, some people out there, you listen to some podcasts and it's like they only watch VHS. I'm not like that. Like, you know what I mean? But nowadays we're so kind of saturated, really, which I can't complain too much, because I'd rather wait like a month or two or whatever until a movie comes out versus a year. You know what I mean? Now we have like about 1,000,001 editions and versions of The Grinch on Blu-ray, DVD, you name it. But back then it was like, you remember that feeling as a kid, and it's like, when is this going to come out on home video, VHS?
Right.
And finally, when it did, you got your allowance or however you got your money for mowing lawns, and you went and bought it.
Well, just to tell you how slow things were, in 1980 on HBO, is when they started showing Jaws.
What?
I mean, so yeah, you didn't see Jaws on anything till about then. I don't know if it's it's early days HBO, but still, the fact of you couldn't just go watch a movie that's been out for 5-6 years till you had a format to actually get it. So
Right. I mean, back then, for you guys and the older generation, it was like, okay, the TV guidebook. You had to look up in the TV guidebook for when it was going to be on. I can't imagine that.
well, if you didn't see the holiday special when it came out,
You
the
didn't.
chances of seeing it again were,
Well, yeah. I mean, especially that, because that was like aired once, didn't it, on Thanksgiving?
exactly right.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying. We had so many of those back then, and we've only got glimpses of a lot of it, and that's what's different about especially my age group, because that's the way it was. I mean, when VHS came out and you could actually buy copies of movies, was such a asinine idea. I mean, it was just like, how's that even possible? And now it's just like you were saying, it's almost instant access. Now we got a situation now to where the movies ain't even going to come out in the theaters. You just go ahead and watch them in your house first. So
I know, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is, like the progression or deprogression, however you want to view it, of like media, physical media, streaming sites. It's crazy to where it's gotten. But like I say, I mean,
I think overall it's a good thing, because I mean,
yeah,
you have so many more options as a consumer. You're like, hey, but sometimes you do have that analysis paralysis, or it's like, why buy this one? Because in 6 months they're just going to have a 12 more seconds of something or other, or a different director's commentary, or
right.
whatever. So I mean, you do get, so like, and I've never really been one big for the commentaries and stuff like that. I mean, every now and then, but not like
That's how you end up with these, right? I mean, because you got what, 6, 7 of these laying around the house now?
Well, if I was in the other room, I'd turn it around and show you guys. It's ridiculous to where it's gotten. But going back to, like, I'm not really a purist in that sense. Like, what you're saying about different cuts, you name it. I'm usually a sucker for that. I'll admit it.
Oh yeah,
like with
we all
the
are.
Screen. Yeah, I mean, the Screen Factory and Arrow and Criterion editions. On one hand, it's like, it's phenomenal and amazing, and I love it because you're finally giving these films the proper treatment that they deserve, and we get posters and all sorts of goodies with them. But on the other hand, it's like, who wants to go back to the days of old? I mean, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Where all you had, I mean, how could anybody afford $80, $90 on one VHS?
Right.
You know what I mean?
With that, I'm looking at time. If we want to do a second one, let's do a show about VHS and movies and continue the Christmas conversation. So then I'll do some edits, because I've got to cut that middle piece and stuff. So just remember where we're at. I'll send you an invitation in a second. I'm going to hit the restroom and refresh my water, and we'll be back in like 2 or 3 minutes. Cool?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's cool with me.
See you shortly.
Okay.